So, there's been a lot of talk about the detention of Hak Ja Han Moon. Today, we're going to break down the arguments from one particular source that says, hey, this isn't really a legal case. They're arguing it's something much bigger, a political and ideological fight. So let's dive right in. And right off the bat, the source we're looking at hits you with this really powerful quote. It's from Newt Gingrich, former U.S. Speaker of the House. He calls it what it is in his view. This is not justice. This is persecution. You can see how it immediately sets the tone, right? It frames this whole thing in very human, very stark terms, basically saying this has nothing to do with a legitimate legal process. Okay, so that raises the big question, doesn't it? Who is Hak Ja Han Moon, and what's going on here that's making her detention blow up into such a huge international issue? Well, she's known to her followers as the Mother of Peace. She's a co-founder and the current leader of the unification movement and has been a major player in interfaith work for, over 60 years. But the speakers in this discussion really want you to focus on the personal details. They make it a point to mention she's an 82-year-old great-grandmother who was actually recovering from heart surgery when this all went down. They're clearly using that to highlight what they see as the incredible harshness of her treatment. So the source we're pulling from, this roundtable discussion, breaks down their case into 5 key arguments. They're basically saying, forget the legal jargon for a second. They believe this is all about much deeper motives, political and ideological ones. So let's walk through them one by one to really get a handle on their perspective. All right, first up, the ideological clash. The argument here is that this isn't just about one person at all. It's about a really old, fundamental conflict, the power of the state versus the power of faith. And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at how the speakers lay this out. They paint a picture of 2 completely opposite worldviews. On one side, you've got this idea that the state is everything. It's supreme, and it wants to control how you think. On the other side, you have the unification movement's view, where God is supreme, and that empowers your individual conscience. They go on to position her movement as part of this conservative, pro-freedom bloc, which they see as standing in direct opposition to a government that's leaning left and, in their view, getting cozier with Beijing. And this quote from Kim Jin-ho really ties it all together. He's saying, look, when this government detains Dr. Han, it's the same old story. He's drawing a direct line to Korea's history, where faith groups were often the ones standing up against communism. So for them, this feels like history repeating itself, political ideology trying to stamp out faith. Okay, so that's the ideological angle. Now for argument number 2, which is all about power. The core claim here is that her spiritual influence isn't just spiritual. It's seen as a direct threat to the government's power. So the speakers call people like her independent power bases. Think about it. Her authority doesn't come from laws or government decrees, it comes from faith. And she leads this massive global movement with its own schools, its own newspapers, its own NGOs. That means her words carry a ton of weight. She can shape how people think, maybe even how they vote, and that's a kind of power the government just can't control.
All right, argument number 3, law as a weapon. This is where they say the legal case is basically a sham. It's a cover story, a legal pretext being used to hide the real political goal. Now, to really get this argument, you have to understand a key concept: selective enforcement. It's pretty simple, actually. It's when the law isn't applied to everyone equally. Instead, it's used like a tool to go after certain people or groups. And the people in this discussion, they're saying that is exactly what's happening here. So you've got these 2 totally different stories. On one hand, the official line is all about, financial irregularities, accountability issues, tax stuff. But on the other hand, the claim from these speakers is that the real reason is to neutralize the whole movement, trash its credibility on the world stage, and scare anyone else from speaking out. And Newt Gingrich's quote here really hammers this home. He's saying basically, when governments want to shut a group down, they don't usually say it out loud. Nah, they go looking for technicalities. It's a much cleaner, more convenient way to go after your enemies. So if they're using the law as a weapon, what's the goal? That brings us to argument number 4. This isn't just about Hak Ja Han Moon. It's about sending a message. A really loud, chilling message to every other faith leader out there. The phrase they use is intimidation by example. The whole idea is that the harshness and the public nature of her detention are completely intentional. It's a strategy. It's meant to be seen, and it's meant to make people afraid. And what does that fear do? Well, the message it sends is pretty clear. If we can do this to her, the mother of peace, imagine what we can do to you. This creates what's called a chilling effect. Pastors think twice before they speak out. People might get nervous about even going to church. And according to this source, the end game is to basically force religion to become a purely private thing, to get it out of the public conversation altogether. Okay, we've arrived at the fifth and final argument. And this one goes deeper. The idea here is that this isn't just about control. It's about trying to erase a symbol, a living symbol of hope for millions of people. You see, for her followers, she isn't just a person or a leader. She's so much more. She is the movement's continuity, a direct link to its history. She's their rallying point. And this quote from Park Ji-young, wow, it really brings that home. She explains that believers call her Amma, which is just the Korean word for mom. That tells you everything, right? It's not a formal relationship, it's a family one. So when she's humiliated, it's not just an attack on a leader. It's felt as a deeply personal attack on their whole family, on their sense of hope. But here's a fascinating twist that the speakers bring up. This whole strategy could totally backfire. History shows that sometimes when you persecute a leader, you don't break the movement, you actually make it stronger. Sharing that suffering can forge an even tighter bond, a more powerful collective identity. So, to wrap all this up, the conclusion from this source is pretty clear. They're saying this isn't some small domestic legal case. No, they're framing it as a moral test for the whole world. It's forcing everyone to ask, where's the line between justice and persecution? And they leave us with this final, powerful thought from Newt Gingrich: faith is not a crime, love is not afraid. It really boils their entire argument down to that one core principle. And that's where we'll leave it. It's a thought-provoking question that comes out of all these arguments, isn't it? At what point does the law stop being a tool for justice and start becoming a weapon for politics?